I want to turn next briefly to another recent development. Elizabeth Warren is back in the news, not as a candidate for anything this time, but in her capacity as a Massachusetts senator. She has proposed a wealth tax. Interestingly, that's what I want to focus on. It has immediately produced howls of opposition. As if a wealth tax was new, it isn't. As if a wealth tax didn't already exist in the United States, it does. All kinds of nonsense by people who want no way to pay the tax. So I want to take just a few minutes to talk to you about Elizabeth Warren's wealth tax. By the way, it's not the only wealth tax idea that's out there, but she's a very important person in the United States Senate and in this country. So hers is getting a good bit of attention. Here is her plan. Let's start. It will tax only the richest 0.1% of the American people. In other words, what I'm about to tell you will not cost a nickel for 99.9% of the American people. Please keep that in mind. Okay, who will it tax? It will only tax people whose total wealth, stocks, bonds, mostly, their homes and whatever else of great value they have. They will only tax them if they have more than $50 million. That's why it's only 0.1% that are going to be affected. How much do the folks have to pay? Well, you don't have to pay anything on your first 50 million. That's what it means. You only start paying the tax on every dollar of wealth you have above $50 million per person. How much do you pay? 2%. 2%. Okay. Income tax that we all pay, much higher percentages. So the tax on wealth that she proposes is a small fraction of what is paid out of income. If you have $1 billion or more, you pay 3% on whatever above billion that you have, if you have it. Okay, so 99.9% of the people will not pay this. Only the richest will pay, and they won't pay on the first 50 million. That's scot-free, no tax. Now let's talk a little bit about it and about some of the silly things being said against it. Is this a new thing in America to tax wealth? Absolutely not. Let me explain. We have 3 levels of government in the United States: federal, state, and local. The local governments in the United States, cities, towns, villages, mostly rely on a wealth tax to pay for local public schools, the police department, the fire department, local health department, maintaining the roads, plowing them, etc. So there's nothing new about a wealth tax. How does it work? Cities and towns have an office. You'll see it in your own downtown. It's called the tax assessor's office. And the office of the tax assessor in every town and village has a job. And that job is to measure the worth, the value of the property owned by local citizens subject to the property or wealth tax. But what's really interesting about the wealth tax is that it only taxes some kinds of wealth, not others. Let me be precise with you. If you live in most American cities and towns, if you own a home, you pay a wealth tax on that home. If you own land, you pay a wealth tax on the land. If you have an automobile, you pay a wealth tax on the value assessed by the assessor of the car or the truck you own. Sometimes business inventories, what's sitting on the shelf in the back of your business, is also subject. Let's be clear. You pay a tax on the value of wealth in those forms. Please keep clear in your mind something the media poorly understand or report. A wealth tax is different from an income tax. Wealth tax is a tax on what you own. Income tax is a tax on the money coming into you. Your wage, your salary is subject to an income tax. If you earn interest on loans you make, you pay an income tax on the interest. That's an income. So let me give you an example that may confuse you, but it shouldn't. Suppose you have a house, and what you do with your house, which you own, is rent out rooms in it or rent the whole house. You will then be taxed twice. First, you will pay a property tax to your local community. But on the rents paid to you, if that's how you use your house, you will be required to pay an income tax to the federal government and perhaps also to the state government. So you will then pay an income tax and a wealth tax. But anyone who tells you that we don't already have a wealth tax does not know what they are talking about, or they are lying to you. And I'll leave it to you to determine in each case which it is. But now here comes the big political punchline. When I listed the wealth that local communities tax, you may have noticed I left out stocks and bonds. You're right. I left them out because cities and towns don't tax that kind of wealth. Now, once again, if they don't, does anybody else tax wealth in the form of stocks and bonds? And the answer is no. That's what Elizabeth Warren is proposing now to do. So it's not new to have a wealth tax. What is new is including the wealth in the form of stocks and bonds in what gets taxed. And if you're wondering, which I hope you are, why in the world would we have a wealth tax on the kind of wealth the average person maybe can get? A home, a car, a piece of land on which the home sits. If that's wealth that's taxed, why is the wealth of the wealthiest, stocks and bonds, not taxed? And you know the answer, don't you? It's because they're the wealthiest. They got it set up that way. It's a wonderful tax dodge for them. That's all it is. That's all it ever was. Think about it. 10%, the richest 10% own 80% of stocks and bonds. They don't pay a wealth tax. If you own a home in an American community worth, say, $100,000, you pay a local property tax on that house, on that home. If you sell that house and use the $100,000 you get from selling it to buy $100,000 worth of stocks, you don't pay your local community anything, because you've changed the form of your wealth from house and land, which is taxable, to stocks and bonds, which is not subject to any wealth tax. If the stocks and bonds you have generate an income to you, dividends, capital gains, interest, you pay an income tax on that. That is income tax. But on the value of the property, nothing. So, in fact, what Elizabeth Warren is proposing is to bring into the existing wealth tax the wealth of the richest people, which they successfully got exempted for centuries in this country. She's correcting a grotesque injustice. Think about it.